Thank you, Mark. Our next writer is Preuitt. Chris's book is, now that I think about it, kind of humorous takes on everyday life. And I think one of Chris's greatest gifts is he kind of turns hindsight into insight. And that is something that happens sort of rapid fire, barely enough time to react to it. And it isn't until a little bit later when you have a chance to sort of stop and think back on it, that you actually do see some pretty humorous elements of what initially seems like a pretty intense situation. So it's my pleasure to introduce Chris.
Start over, I'm Chris Preuitt. I'm a local author, and I'm an expert at doing things apparently the wrong way. I wrote a book here of short stories, and you can tell it's mine because it's got me on the cover. Here's the picture on the bottom of the book, and that's what I look like up close. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this book, and then I'm going to try to tell you why I wrote the book. Since I'm ad-libbing this, that means I don't know what I'm going to say from time to time. I'll look out here, and maybe there's a prompter, but I don't see it. Anyway, this could be another one of those stories, because the whole thing is about memories. That's the purpose of the book. Sometimes you don't know in the present when you're making a memory, and it's often not the good things that happen to you, or the number of fish you catch, or anything like that. It's the bad things. And 10 years in the future, when you look back on this experience, that's what you remember with humor, that's what you remember with affection, are the bad things that happened to you. Anyway, I wrote the book on the advice of a friend who said, when I was facing a question of what to do with my near future, he said, go out, have adventures, and write a book about it, because people like to read about somebody worse off than themselves. And that's kind of where I am. Anyway, on the back of the book is an introduction that says, Chris Preuitt decided to abandon his dead-end job and roamed about the outdoors of Oregon for the better part of a year, trying to experience as many misfortunes and disasters as possible. He battled bad luck, wretched weather, hostile wildlife, personal afflictions, and a seemingly uncanny ability to cross paths with a host of oddball characters. Anytime you might be feeling sorry yourself, pick up this book and read a couple of stories and you'll feel a whole lot better. Now, my wife, who was not with me at that time, but has since had the misfortune to wind up with me, anyway, she wrote a foreword, and the last part of this foreword, the first part's all full of good stuff. She has to say good stuff because she's my wife. But the last part says, oh yes, I have been scared at times by his recklessness and his abandonment of everything logical. But here's the thing, I've often thought if I valued my life, I would not follow this man into the wilderness, but just as often, I've come to the conclusion that if I valued living, I would not hesitate. She has fun out there, even though she does complain a little bit from time to time. As to why I wrote the book, I'm trying to point out the importance of memories. Anything you do, and particularly when you go into the outdoors, fishing, bird watching, whatever you want to do out there, stuff happens. Stuff happens to you, and that's called a memory. And at the time, while it's happening, you run out of gas, or your matches are wet, the tent leaks, or some critter comes in and eats up your food supplies, or anything else. At the time, you look upon it as a terrible misfortune. But 10 months later, 10 years later, whenever you talk about a trip, you're going to remember that time first. You don't talk about how many fish you caught, or what kind of birds you saw, or anything else. You talk about what went wrong. And the only possibility, the only bad thing about that is you don't know it at the time. When you're out there and something bad goes wrong, all of a sudden it's a major hindrance on your trip, and you can't go ha 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 and forget about it. But at least in hindsight, you can think back on it, and it's a good memory. And I don't know how to impress upon everybody more strongly my appreciation for memories, other than to ask you if you can remember remember Bob Hope? Media? Well, his theme song was Thanks for the Memories. He lived to be 100 years old or so, and I go by that same credo. Thanks for the memories, and that's why I wrote the book. I don't know if I came across too clearly in what I was trying to say here, but I hope you take a look at this book and come over here to where the other authors are. More of them, more glib than I am, I'm quite sure. But anyway, take a look around, find a book you like, pick it up, take it home, and start making your own memories. The next author is a very well-known